Video script. Trump's approval is collapsing state by state. Here's the map that explains the midterms. Runtime target. Approximately 6 to 7 minutes. Style. Faceless narration. Map/graphic driven. U.S. politics and geopolitics channel. Hook. 00 to 020. There are less than 3 months left before America votes again. And if this next election were held today, the map you're about to see should be terrifying every single Republican strategist in Washington. Because right now, in the middle of 2026, Donald Trump is underwater. Not in 1 or 2 states, not just in the coastal cities Republicans always expect to lose, but in almost every state that actually decides who controls Congress. Even some of his old strongholds are starting to crack. So today we're breaking down exactly where Trump stands, state by state, what's driving the numbers, and why this single data set might be the best early warning signal we have for the November midterms. Section 1. The headline number, 020 to 115. Let's start nationally. As of the latest tracking, roughly 35% of voters approve of the job Trump is doing, while 59% disapprove. That puts his net approval at -24, meaning for every voter who backs his performance, nearly 2 disapprove of it. This comes from Civic's continuous online tracking poll of registered voters, which has now collected well over 120,000 responses since Trump's inauguration in January 2025. It's not a one-off snapshot. It's a rolling average built from a huge sample, which is exactly why outlets like Newsweek use it to build state-level approval maps. And that's important, because national numbers only tell you half the story. The real story, the one that decides which party controls the House and Senate in 2027, is what's happening inside individual states. Section 2, where Trump is still winning, 115 to 230. Let's start with the good news for the president, because there is some. It's just shrinking. Trump's strongest state by far is Wyoming, where 56% approve of him and 35% disapprove, a net approval of +22. Behind Wyoming sits a familiar list of deep red strongholds, North Dakota at +18, West Virginia at +13, South Dakota and Idaho both around +9, Arkansas at +8, Oklahoma at +7, and Alabama at +6. But here's the catch, and this is the part most coverage buries. Every single one of these numbers is a steep decline from where Trump started his second term. Wyoming alone has fallen from a jaw-dropping +46 net approval at the start of his presidency down to +22 today. North Dakota has dropped from +30 to +18. Even in the reddest parts of the country, Trump is bleeding support. He's just bleeding it from a much higher starting point. And 2 states tell an even more dramatic version of this story. Indiana, which had been positive for Trump throughout his second term, flipped underwater in late June and now sits at -3. Mississippi, a state Republicans consider unshakable, turned negative back in May and hasn't recovered. When a state like Mississippi goes negative on a Republican president, that's not noise. That's a signal. Section 3, where Trump is drowning, 230 to 330. Now let's flip to the other end of the map. And this is where things get genuinely brutal for the White House. Trump's weakest state is Hawaii, where just 18% approve of him and a staggering 78% disapprove, a net rating of -60. Right behind Hawaii comes Vermont at -54, Maryland at -52, and Massachusetts at -48. California sits at -43, and Washington State is tied with it at the same figure. Oregon comes in around -40, and New York rounds out the list at -39. These are the states Republicans never expected to win anyway, so on their own, they don't tell us much about the midterms. The real story is what comes next. Section 4, the part that actually decides the midterms, 330 to 445. Here's where this map stops being trivia and starts being a genuine warning sign for Republicans. Every single one of the 7 battleground states Trump carried in 2024, the states that actually won him the presidency, currently shows him underwater. Arizona sits at -13. Georgia is at -23. Michigan is at -22. Nevada is at -21. North Carolina comes in at -16. Pennsylvania is at -19, and Wisconsin sits at -17. Even Florida, a state that's been reliably Republican in every recent election, has slipped underwater, sitting at -11. Political scientists are blunt about W.